There was a time in your life when you had to deal with going into the service. And I do want to go into that because military service was mandatory in Romania, wasn't
Absolutely.
it? Yeah, yeah. Now, I know there were some differences if you're going to go on to college or if you were not going to go on to college. Walk us through that.
Well, I want to specify first that right now it's easy to talk about. But every time when we go through challenges, until the miracle happens, it's not easy.
Yes.
It requires a lot of faith, a lot of patience. Faith that we cannot say that we have, patience that we cannot say that we have. So it's kind of, I remember going to my father and saying what to do. And he would say, God takes you by hand if you keep his hand, you know, and he would say he will give you strength for the day, every day.
Wow.
Just, he would say these very words, don't live alone. A day without God is a day that you lose.
As you lose, wow.
He said it's a last day for eternity, so never live alone. So basically for the service, you were not allowed to go to a university before you would be incorporated for service. It's like you would have to go to the commissariat, was called. I don't know if there is a word in English for
Commissary, it's close, yeah.
And they would decide if you are healthy enough to do service or not, and they will give you a paper, incorporable or non-incorporable.
Oh, that's a little different, yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah.
if you, unless you have that paper, you could not go to any school.
But you went to the Army, and we're going to do some of the stuff in just a moment, but you ran into some problems with Army service also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are many of them. One of them, I remember asking God to wake me up early in the morning so I would have enough time to pray. I didn't want to start the day without prayer. And sure, I didn't have a Bible, but my girlfriend, that is my wife, she would send me letters and she would write paragraphs from the Spirit of Prophecy, Bible verses, and words of encouragement. And I would pray and God would wake me up early in the morning, like 4:30, and I would stay under the blanket because I didn't want anybody to see me. And with a small flashlight, I would read and pray and read and pray and spend some time with God. And then I would slowly, under the blanket, get dressed, slow. When the trumpet would call soldiers to wake up, we would have just a short, extremely short time to get dressed and be in front of the garrison in the front yard. I would always be the first one because I was already dressed. Well, I remember one specific time I prayed and said, God, please wake me up early enough so I can start the day with you. And God woke me up at 2:30. And I said, come on, this is too early. And I wanted to go back to sleep. And God spoke in my mind and said, didn't you ask me to wake you up? So I said, okay, then I'm going to pray, study, and get dressed. And I got dressed, and then I wanted to go back to sleep when the trumpet started to sound. And they had a drill. It was like a war alarm.
Yes.
It was just a drill, you know. And everybody was sleepy. Most of them got punished for being late. I was the first one there. And so they asked me, what type of reward you want? A picture with the flag, a few days at home, what do you prefer? And sure, I took the days at home. Then a different time, there were floods, so they called the army to go and pick up the corn because the corn was in the water.
I remember that story, yes.
And I would wake up early every day, and they didn't have a clock, an alarm clock. So the lieutenant asked one soldier to wake everybody up, and he slept longer than anybody else. So then the other one, and then one of the soldiers, his name was Adrian, he told the lieutenant, Goia wakes up early because I asked him, and he said God is waking him up to pray. So if you want somebody to wake us up, Goia can wake us up. So the lieutenant said, Goia, can you wake us up tomorrow? I said, yeah. What time? 5:30. He said, okay. How do you wake up? And I said, well, I am praying and God wakes me up. Yeah, sure. Does he talk to you or he would move your shoulder? How does he do it? And I said, well, you pray and you'll see how. And I remember I would wake them up every day, and I told the lieutenant, every day I worked, and some of the soldiers would get drunk, and some of them would not work. And he would come and check, and he would find that on the row that I am on, the corn is picked up faithfully.
Mm-hmm.
And he would give me as an example every day. You see how he works? You got to work the same. Well, Friday I went to him and I said, tomorrow I cannot work. It's my day. I worship God. He said, go away. There is no God in this country. I said, I'm not going to work. Yes, you will. I'm not going to work. Yes, you will.
Now you're in the service now. This is not like before. You're under military orders.
You are under order. You don't say no. You say, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And I said, I'm sorry. I've been obeying and respectful and do whatever you say. But tomorrow is God's day and God is above you. So tomorrow I cannot work.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you will. I said, respectfully, but I will not. He said, you go to prison. I said, I will. I would rather go to prison. He said, are you crazy? I said, well, I don't know if I am crazy or not. But I said, I want you to know, I will not work.
Mm-hmm.
And he smiled and he said, if I let you not work, I can lose my job and my freedom. And I said, well, if you let me not work, the God that is going to take care of me is going to take care of you too.
Mm.
And he looked to me, he called me aside, and he said, don't tell anybody, I'm going to let you not work tomorrow. I hope that your God is going to take care of me and my family. And then he asked me to pray for him. His name was Bărbulescu.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after 2 weeks, he was called back to the garrison, and the new one that was Vulpoi, that in English means fox, he was sent. That guy was a mean guy.
He's a tough guy.
Tough guy.
Yeah.
He didn't care for soldiers, he cared just for himself.
Uh-huh.
He called us names. He would not even care if we worked. He would make our life miserable. He did see that I work. But when I went to him Friday and said, I don't work tomorrow, I said, I worked every day. He said, I don't care that you worked. You work tomorrow. And if you work or not, you go in between the corn like everybody else. I said, I will not. Yes, you will. And I'm going to make you go. And if you go to prison, I'm going to make sure that you have a miserable life, that in prison you work. If not, they will beat you to death until you work. And he said, I'm going to make sure that you do that.
Mm.
He called me names. He cursed me. He took, I remember, an apple and threw after me. And, and I said, I'm not going to work. Get out. Get away. He didn't even want to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
I prayed the whole night. And I remember I had in my mind that I would have to make a decision. I go to prison or I work. And I asked God for strength. It was not easy. And I made up my mind that I'm not going to work.
Yeah.
So Saturday morning, I went to him during breakfast. And I told him, I said, I want to talk to you. Get out. I said, regardless if you listen or not, I'm going to say it. You will ruin my life. I will go to prison. But even if you put your gun, I said, in my head, and you shoot me, I will not work because I love God more than my life.
Mm.
And he said, you are crazy. And I said, probably. But I said, you are going to ruin somebody's life. And I said, I will not work.
Mm.
And I said, may God be with me.
Wow.
And he said, you are crazy, aren't you? You are serious, aren't you? I said, yes, I am. Excuse me. So you are willing to go to prison? I said, yes, I am. What am I going to do with you?
Yeah. Now, I need to just stop you and say, when we talk about prison in Romania in communist times, you're not talking about lounge chair, watching TV, sitting back. You know, some of our prisons here in the States can be, having been in prison, it's rough life. But depending on where you go, you're talking about real prison. This is no cakewalk. You're talking about
I have friends
rough times. Yeah.
And relatives that went to prison for having Bibles.
Yes.
And they would be beaten every day. Every day. And they stayed in prison until revolution. And I have friends that went to prison for not working Sabbath during the army.
Yes.
They stayed in prison 7, 10, 11 years. Mm-hmm. Beaten, extremely, extremely difficult life.
Yes.
My cousin was in prison. He lost weight that you would not recognize him. He would wish to die. He would tell you the stories you would not even believe. So, basically,
you knew that's what was waiting for you. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's what was going to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he said, you are serious? I said, yes, I am. And he called me to come. It was something like a, like a kitchen, not the cafeteria where everybody was eating.
Yeah.
And he said, listen, tomorrow you will not work, but you will do what I'm asking you to do. So I said, hey, don't ask me to work because I'm not going to work. And he said, listen, if I let you not work, the others are going to tell on me and I lose my job and my freedom. I'm not going to do that for you. But he said, I'm going to find a way that they don't know. And when I call on you tomorrow, you better answer. Well, I said, can I trust you? Because I knew he didn't care for anybody and you could not count on his word. He didn't have a word. And he called me names and he said, get away. If you don't trust me, then I don't even talk to you. I said, well, it's not that I don't trust you, but I tell you, don't ask me to work because I will not work. Saturday morning, he asked every soldier to take 1 row of corn. And then he asked me the last one. So I did. I stood up right in front of in line like everybody else. Now he said, soldiers, go ahead, straight forward, start picking corn. And he was waiting to see what I do. And everybody in line, everybody started to walk straight towards the corn to start working. I didn't move. I stood still. And then he looked to me, and after a few seconds, he said, Goia, come back. I want you to come here and start a fire for me. I'm cold. Pick up the wood and start a fire. Turned around, went to him. I said, I'm not going to start a fire for you. But by this time, soldiers were already entering between the
rows,
in the cornfield. And he said, he called me names, and then he said, okay, so what are you going to do now? If you stay here, they see that you don't work. Go. And he said to me these very words, evaporate, disappear. I don't want to see you. Come tonight. So I walked into the forest, walked until to the next village. And I asked, where is the Adventist church? And I went to the church.
Wow.
After the church, some church members took me home and gave me good food. And after sunset, after having prayer and everything, went back to the forest.
Yes.
And he said, so, how was your day? I said, it was great. And he said, if you touch something, I will make your life miserable. Don't tell anybody anything. So the soldiers would come to me. So he called you back? Yes, he did. What did he ask you to do? I said, well, I cannot tell you. Wow. Was it bad? I said, well, I cannot tell you. And they never knew.
And they never knew.
Same second Sabbath. However, after a month of corn, we went back to the garrison for instruction. And it was a different one that was in the Communist Party. Tah'in-ngom was his name. He was a mean man. He was shameless, godless, and almost like demon-possessed. He was extremely, extremely bad. He came to me and said, I know who you are. I know what you do. I know what you talk. I know what you eat at home. I know every second of your life. I know what you talk in the house. And he said, I'll make you eat pork. I'll make you drink. I'll make you work Saturdays. I'll make you curse God. If not, I'll terminate your life. Not just your freedom. I'll make sure that you don't live here.
Isn't it interesting how the Lord allowed you to go over this ground again and again and again, and how the devil put extremely belligerent, mean-spirited, anti-God people in your path, and yet God proved himself faithful every time. And when you read the book, you almost can't wait to get through one miracle, one story, to get to the next one, because there is this consistent God showing himself powerful each and every time. So you go from one bad guy to a worse bad guy, now to a worse bad guy. So walk us through that story.
I remember my father saying, the greater the challenge, the greater the miracle, as long as you are in God's hands. Now, this guy called me to, meanwhile some things happened. Meanwhile, soldiers used to steal from the storage room compasses, shoes, tools, and sell them to buy alcohol. And they would ask this soldier to guard, to protect, and he himself would steal, and then they would ask a different one. Eventually, my friend Adrian went to them and said, if you ask Goia, nothing is going to disappear. This guy is honest. So they asked me to oversee the storage room, and when the soldiers would come for fresh sacks, I would say, you bring back the ones that you stole in the morning, and I give you new ones. So things started to come back, and nothing disappeared anymore. And then something happened that driveway was broken. It was paved with nice stones, like square, I don't know how to call them. Very nice, you see in old cities.
Oh, like cobblestones, we used to call them. Yes, 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 yes.
And they didn't know how to fix it, and I fixed the driveway.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember the museum. It was a very old garrison, built in 1500s by one of the kings, way hundreds of years before. So Alexander Jan Kuza was the name of the garrison. So they asked somebody to fix the museum, and they didn't know. So I did it. And all the old weapons and swords and things, I covered them in glass, made kind of boxes of glass, covered all the old inscriptions, and just by God's grace, I made it beautiful. And then the thing that holds the curtains over the commander, the chief of the whole garrison, over the door, that broke and almost fell onto his head and almost hit him, you know. So nobody knew how to fix it, and I did it. So there were several things that happened that God used me to help there, you know. So eventually, one Sabbath, during some Sabbaths I would hide in the bathroom. During some Sabbaths I would find a way to escape. But one Sabbath he specifically called me and then put me in front of the other soldiers and ordered me to dig a hole in the ground. And I talked to him and I said, listen, I will not do it. Please don't ask me to do it, because if you would ask me privately, it would be a punishment. But if you would order me in front of the whole company, we call it, that would be a lot worse punishment to disregard his command. And so he said, I'm going to get you in front of everybody, make you do it. If not, I'm going to get the most difficult, the hardest punishment for you. And so he asked me to step forward and to dig a hole in the ground and hide from enemy. There was no enemy, but it was an order. And instead of, when he said that I should dig a hole in the ground, I didn't move. So he ordered me again, and I didn't move. And he ordered me again, and he started to lose his temper, and he started to scream and to get foam at his mouth.
He's angry.
Extremely, extreme anger. And he screamed, and he said, you disobey and disregard me in front of the other soldiers, I'll make you pay for it. And screaming, he left us there. He called all the officers of the garrison. And he proposed maximum punishment. During the war would be the capital punishment. However, during the peace would be 7 to 14 years prison.
Yeah, they'd just shoot you on the spot. In wartime, you just obey an order. But now it's prison.
So I left the training field, went to the storage room, locked myself inside, and started to pray. And in the beginning, I was asking God for help to protect me. But as I was praying, it came to my mind that God should be the priority, God's honor, God's name, and that I should ask that whatever happens, just that He would give me strength and peace and faith.
Amen.
So I was praying for faith, and as I was praying, He gave me peace.
Praise
I remember
God.
I started to read paragraphs that my girlfriend sent me and started to sing songs. And as I was praying, somebody knocks in the door. It was a sergeant. His name was Chuchu Vasile. No, I'm sorry, Chuchu Marian. It's a long time since. He was a short guy, funny guy. So I opened the door, and he said, Pavel, I want you to be honest with me. So I am honest with you. Do you know General Voichița? I said, I don't know the general. He was one of the generals of the 4 armies of Romania. He was extremely big. And the general happened that he came without announcing to check, to inspect our garrison. When he came to inspect, he visited the museum and he noticed that it's all covered in glass. And he visited that and that and that and that.
So all the work you had done all the time, the general seeing all of this stuff.
What I didn't know.
Yeah, this was one of the top guys in the country, not just your little unit. One of the 4 big guys in the country.
In the whole country.
Okay.
And then they had a meeting. And so the sergeant says to me, you sure you don't know the general? No. You don't know anybody in the Central Committee, the Communist Party?
Yes.
I said, no. You don't know anybody there? No. He said, wow. I said, why? And he says, this is what happened. The general came from Bucharest to inspect the garrison. And they said, we have an emergency meeting, we have to punish a guy. I said, well, before we do that, let's first get done with the inspection.
Yes.
And he said, I noticed that you did that. Who did the museum? And they said, oh, Goia. I noticed that you got the driveway. Who did the driveway? Goia.
Goia.
What about the storage room? It's clean and in order, and before all the shovels were dirty. Right now they were clean. And who did it?
Goia.
Goia. After they talked about everything, he says, okay, who is the guy that you want to punish? And they said, it's Goia. And he said, why would you punish him? What did he do? Fighting, getting drunk. Is he against the country, against the Communist Party? And they said, no, he doesn't get involved in politics. It's just that he doesn't work Saturdays. Does he work the other days? Yeah, he works pretty hard every day. Is he honest? Yes, he is. Does he do proselytism, propaganda, religious propaganda? No. Then what do you have against him? Don't you wish that you had everybody like him? Mm-hmm. If he's ready to die for his God, don't you think that he would be ready to die for his country too? These are the people that never betray us. We wish you'd have more people like him.
Yes.
And he said, you touch him, you lose your jobs.
Uh-oh.
You touch him, you go against me. He said, don't touch this guy.
All right.
So the sergeant said, so you don't know him? I said, no, I don't. It was hard for me to even believe. But after he left, Bărbulescu, the guy that was in the first 2 weeks at Cornfield,
yes,
he came and says, Pavel, do you know the general? I said, no, I don't know him. You don't lie, you cannot lie. You are an Adventist. I said, no, I don't lie. He told me the same story. So basically, after that, lieutenants and others and captains would come to me and say, hey, Pavel, don't you want to go to church? Yes, I want. You are free to go. Don't you want to go home? Yes, I want. You are free to go. Just call the general and tell him that we take good care of you. They didn't believe that I don't even know him.
You don't know him, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So basically from that day on, I had the best life among all soldiers there.
Yes.
I ate good food. I would go out anytime I wanted, go home anytime, go to church every Sabbath. They never asked me to work Saturdays again.
Yeah.
They would try to protect me so the general would be happy.
That is powerful. God answered the prayer of Solomon. He gave you what you wanted and what you didn't even ask for. Someone took up your cause who you did not even know. That's how powerful God is. That is an incredible story.